So I wanted to start off by sharing how I source my inspiration for my prints. So this is an old book that I've got. It's back from my teaching days when I started off by teaching graphic design. It was one of the artists that we used to look at as part of our contextual studies. And I just really liked David Carson. I like the use of his typography and the way he combines it with images. He was quite famous for the Ray Gun magazines. And I just liked the way he kind of broke the rules about typography and, distorted them, rotated them, that type of thing. But I'll turn to the image that has really inspired this print. I really like the use of texture, the blocks of colour, combining it with typography. I've also been drawn to these images as I've been taking photographs of old vintage signage from the reclamation yard. So I'm looking to incorporate some of this feel to my print as well. So I've really limited what I have to hand today. I tend to overdo things and have lots and lots of things and then try and incorporate too much. So what I've got is a laser copy of a vintage sign that I took at a reclamation yard. So I am trying to use my own images that I've created, but you could recreate this using text out of magazines. It's just simply I want this work to be kind of original to what I'm doing, just for me, okay? So I've also got these old book pages that I have image transferred and pulled onto wet strength tissue paper. Now, the reason I'm using these and not the actual vintage papers is that I find the vintage papers can be quite unreliable, unstable. I can't control them. I don't really know how they're going to react to the paints that I'm using. So I've just found for my kind of the way I'm working at the moment, I quite like to work and have them on the wet strength tissue paper. I'm keeping my textures minimal. So I just want to stick to circles and lines. So I've got an old it's a throat lozenge package that does really nice circles and just a piece of corrugated card for my lines. Again, I'm going to keep my colours very neutral. I'm going to go for Naples yellow light, blue grey and green grey. And obviously for my image transfers, I'm going to stick with my Mars black because I know I'm going to get a successful image transfer with that one. So today I'm using my 8x10 gel plate and I've mounted it on a piece of plastic like Perspex. And the reason I'm doing this is so one, I can move it around easily, flip it over, because I'm just going to be using sections on my gel plate. So I want the ability to be able to flip it over and kind of place it down on my paper, more like a stamp really. The advantage of having it on a piece of Perspex is that I can see through it, so I can position it exactly where I want it to give me lots of control. So for my mixed media print today, I need a paper that's quite thick and stable. So I'm using some paper that I already have from Hand Printed. It's Printmaker Snowden and it's 300 GSM. So it's quite a heavy paper. Now, I'm not expecting people to go out and buy this paper. I already have it. I'm a printmaker. It's a good all-round printmaking paper. But what you're looking for is something, like I say, quite substantial, but it's ultra kind of smooth. I found the best papers that work on the gel plate are those that are nice and smooth. So I'm going to begin by just tearing up some copier paper into kind of random strips with rough torn edges because I want this to have a bit more of a grungy feel like the work of David Carson, as that's what's inspiring this print. And I'm just using the copier paper to mask off my plate because, like I said, I'm only going to be using sections of the plate rather than the whole gel plate. So I'm going to start by adding some of the blue grey, just using a very small amount of paint, and I'm using my brayer to distribute that evenly just over that small area I've created with the masks. So I'm now pressing the corrugated cardboard into the wet paint just to create some texture. I'm not doing it all over because I just want to create some areas of block colour and texture at the same time. And now I'm peeling back that copier paper, those masks, to reveal that shape that I've got ready to transfer onto my paper. So I'm flipping my plate over and I'm now looking at where I want to position this on my print. And that's the beauty of having it on a piece of Perspex, is that I can change my mind and move it around and decide where I want it to go. I'm pressing the gel plate down firmly to make really good contact with my gel plate with my paper, and then I'm going to flip it over and give it a really good rub again so the paper makes really good contact with the gel plate. I'm now flipping it back over again and removing the gel plate from the paper. Now this is really important, especially when you're working with thicker paper. If you try and peel the paper back from the gel plate, you'll find you'll end up having an accident and maybe creating a really big crease through your artwork. So by removing the gel plate from the paper, it kind of eliminates that for you. So I'm reusing my copier paper. You don't have to have fresh copier paper each time. And again, I'm just masking a small area of my plate off again. And then I'm going to just check that I've got the right kind of shape that's going to fit before I even apply any paint. And then I'm going to continue the process of layering colour, adding texture and putting it on to my substrate. So I'm going to speed the video up a little bit from this part just so you can see the full process. I'm using the green grey this time, and I am going to use that old pill packet to create some textured circles. So this time I'm using the Naples Yellow Light, and actually I'm not cleaning my plate in between. So I'm hoping that that Naples Yellow Light will pick up the bits that have been left behind by the blue and green and transfer, and again give me a little bit more texture to my background for my print. Again, just repeating, stamping the pill packet and the corrugated card to just give me a little bit more texture as well. So just peeling that back, and I'm quite happy that actually it's picked up those bits off the plate, so it does give it a little bit more interest. So I'm going to do some image transfer now, and I don't want to use this image as a whole. I quite like that S separately, and I quite like that bottom section. So I'm just going to tear this image up and use it in parts. So again, I've just masked off a small amount of the plate that I'm going to use, and I'm applying a small amount of paint, and it's the Liquitex Mars Black, using my brayer to distribute that nice and evenly across the plate. You want kind of a nice coverage but not a thick coverage, and you want it to be nice and smooth. I'm working in real time here, so you can see how long it takes me to apply the paint, how long the image is down for, and how long it takes me to pull a print. I'm placing my laser copy down into the wet paint, giving it a good rub to make contact, and it's between a 5-second and a 10-second rule. So on a cold damp day, 10 seconds, 5 seconds if it's really warm in the studio. I'm now pulling back those masks, and what I really like about this is you get that kind of torn edge to the look of the print as well. I've let this completely dry on my gel plate before I'm adding just a small amount of matte gel medium to pull my print. So again, just using my brayer to distribute that gel medium across the plate. That's going to reactivate the paint that's on the plate, and then I'm going to use that to transfer it onto my mixed media print. Peeling back my gel plate from my paper to reveal that image transfer. And you can see now how I'm starting to build the layers section by section. And I'm using my mount as I go along to check the composition. I find this really helps with composition. Again, I've increased the speed of this a little bit again now, because I'm just going to be repeating the same process. I'm masking areas of my plate off and then using those to transfer section by section onto my paper to build that mixed media print. So again, I've still got a little bit of leftover paint on my gel plate. I'm using that Naples yellow light again, and I'm just trying to lift that excess paint off to create a bit more of a grungy background to take away that white effect from a paper. I did intend initially to leave the white space like the work of David Carson, but again, I've got carried away. It doesn't really suit my style, so I'm filling all those gaps in with textures now. Using my mount again now to have a look and really just pausing to decide where I go from here. What am I going to do next? So this is going to be a mixed media print, so I've decided to incorporate some collage. So I've just torn some pieces out of the sheets of wet strength tissue paper that I showed you at the beginning of the video. So I've torn some sections out, and I am going to apply some matte medium directly to my print, and I'm using just a colour shaper tool. You could use anything, a credit card, a brush, whatever, to distribute that matte medium. And then I am going to use a water spray to apply water to the wet strength tissue paper. Now, I seen Jackie Bernardi doing this on one of her YouTube videos, and I just thought I'd give it a try and see if it works. So when I'm off camera, I'm using the spray bottle to make the wet strength tissue paper wet, and it does seem to make it even more transparent. And then I am applying a layer of matte medium over the top and smoothing that out. And actually I found when this is dry, you can't actually even feel the tissue paper as part of your print. It completely kind of absorbs into the paper, gives you a really nice effect. So I am back onto my image transfer because I want to transfer some kind of larger, bolder shapes now. So again, following the same process as before, a small amount of Liquitex Mars Black, distributing that nice and thinly and evenly across my plate. And then I'm going to place my text down, give it a good rub to make contact, and then lift it from the plate to reveal my image transfer. Again, all this is in real time, so you can see how long it takes me, because I know this is kind of the trickiest part that people find difficult, so you can really see the time it takes me to transfer this image. So this needs to dry completely on the plate. So while this is drying, again, I've just speeded this up a little bit. I'm just using a baby wipe wrapped around my finger and just to clean the excess from around that transfer, because I don't want all of those edges to show. So I'm just cleaning that up. I'm just trying to decide whether I want that section on the right or not. So again, just moving it around my print to see whether I want it or I'm going to remove it. I decide to keep it, so I'm just using a small amount of matte medium to again transfer this onto my paper. So again, I'm going to put the mount around it. I feel I'm nearly there. Just need a little something in that top left hand corner. So I decide just another little bit of image transfer. So I'm just going to transfer those few letters. That's what's really great about this technique, is that I can just flip it over and keep repositioning it, so I can decide in advance about what part of the image transfer I want to keep. So after much deliberation, I decided it was just this little bit that I wanted to transfer. So I'm using the typography as shapes rather than full letter forms to create that just little bit of visual interest in that top left-hand corner. I'm using the matte medium to transfer it onto my print. So let's take a look at the final print. So I'm quite happy with the composition. I quite like the use of typography with the texture. I'm inspired by David Carson, but if I was comparing it, I don't have that same use of white space to let the text breathe. It's probably a little bit more busy, but I quite like it. And this is a new way of working for me. So it's quite nice to explore building layers in this way. Drop me a comment, let me know what you think.